Hi everyone, I'm Izzy and I'm joined today by your 2022 Collegiate Championship AD, Shogo. Shogo, how are you?
I'm good. I'm good. How you doing?
I am wonderful. Congratulations on the championship this year. Your first year in the States. Give us a rundown of how it went.
Right. So I first came to Columbia College. I really liked the school, the cafeteria, the people, my classes, my professors. Everything was really, really good except the esports program. Um, so my director and my coach, I felt constantly disrespected by them and undervalued, which kind of made me not want to stay. And I wasn't the only one. Like my teammates were talking about leaving way before I thought about leaving. Um, and our results weren't as good as we expected them to be. We had a strong roster, but I felt like our results were not good enough. And I feel like a lot of it was because just the environment was not setting us up for success.
And so, through that kind of negative experience, what kind of positives were you able to draw and what were you able to learn at Columbia?
So I kind of learned how a common enemy kind of brings the team together, even where we weren't, like getting along so well. Once we had that common enemy, we got along really well, right? So that was one thing I learned. But another thing I learned is just to appreciate um, when you have like your superiors are really good and give you a good feeling of like being valued and appreciated, which I really feel from Novabot, my coach, and Justin, my director. So that's really nice. Um, But other
Yeah,
than that, CC was just a good stepping stone for me to get used to the environment. It's a different culture, it's a different country, different language. Everything is very, very different from what I'm used to. So being there kind of was a soft landing in a way.
and how was your transition to UST? That's where things really kicked off for you.
So the transition I feel like was pretty easy. So I didn't like the school as much as I did at CC, but the team was a lot better, the facility was better, the staff was better. So everything related to esports was a lot better at USD, which made the transition a lot easier for me and Trickies. So they
Yeah.
welcomed us with open arms, even though we had big shoes to fill for Trevor and Array. And yeah, we kind of started doing well pretty soon, like almost instantly. It all just clicked, kind of.
Yeah. And what were some of your personal strengths on that team leading up to the collegiate championship?
So I'm really mechanical. So anytime we fall behind, it's like okay, just let Shogo farm and you can carry late game, right? That's often our strategy, and was our strategy kind of in CLOL for a lot of the games. Other than that, I think it was often my job to make sure that everyone gets along and like that we all hang out, do stuff together because I think it's really really important for a team to get along really well outside of the game before they can get along really well inside the game, if that
Yeah.
makes sense. So I think that's one thing that collegiate does a lot better than amateur, because amateur teams, as soon as something starts going south, they boom, right? The
Yeah.
team's gone. They're like, okay, let's disband. It's not working, right? Where in collegiate, even if you don't do well for 3 weeks in a row in scrims, you're still with the guys. Like there's
Yeah.
no there's no way out. Like you still have to play with them, right? You have to work on your problems. You can't just run from them.
And do you think that sets you really well up to be on an academy and LCS team because you're really good at making the most out of a bad situation and, even more out of a good situation?
Right, for sure. So academy teams and LCS teams, they're stuck together until the split ends anyway. So they have to work on these issues the same way that collegiate has to, right? They can't run away. They can't be just they can't say just replace me,
Yeah.
right?
And you mentioned earlier that one of your personal strengths is being really mechanical and being able to find ways to get ahead when you're behind by just leaning into those mechanics.
hmm
Can you give an example of when you were able to successfully execute that strategy?
Yeah. So game two against MU in the semifinals of CLO in LA, we were falling behind really, really like we were really far behind throughout the whole game, and slowly I started getting a lot of farm, getting my items, and then I was able to pop off in like two crucial team fights. And we successfully defended the base, and then the next fight, I just took over the fight at Baron, and we just won the game off of one good fight. And I think that was like one moment where it really showed how my play style can really win games single-handedly.
You didn't crack under that pressure even though you guys were behind. Where does that kind of mental come from?
I spent 3 years in the Israeli Air Force, so I was kind of trained to do well under pressure, to still perform, still get the job done. So that's nothing that's new to me in any way. It's just part of the job, right? Any job has some pressure, some stress, and you have to keep doing it, even though it's stressful, even though it's hard.
At the end of your reel, it says no longer an import in all caps. What does that mean? What are the rules? Yeah, I just want to like give a rundown of that situation.
Right. So right now, the import rules states that every organization has 3 import slots split across their academy and LCS team, and they cannot place more than 2 imports per team. Right. So if they have two imports in their LCS team, they can only have 1 import in their academy team. So what they're doing now is putting in one more import slot for emerging regions. So that would be Middle East, North Africa, Latin America, Turkey, whatever.
Mm-hmm.
Um, so now organizations will have 4 import slots to play with rather than just the usual 3.
Is it still that they can only play with 2 imports on their team at a time, but they're just allowed that
Right.
fourth spot without
Yeah.
taking?
It really helps me get into academy because usually organizations use their 2 import slots on their LCS roster.
Yeah, and those spots often go to players from major regions. So
Right. Like EU, Korea,
yeah,
you name it.
I want to go back to talking about LA a little bit. Getting to
Mhm.
play at the LCS studio, how motivating of an experience was that for you? Getting to be in person.
I mean, that was really great, especially considering just not too long before that, we went to the LCS finals in Houston. Um, and we got to play test, and then we got to see the whole thing. And, Danny had his pop off
Yeah,
moment where he got a penta on Jinx on the Baron. And that was like, I was sitting there like, damn, I wish that was me. Like, I wish that was my moment.
yeah.
So being on the LCS stage later that year, it's kind of like, okay, this is your moment. Like this is the stage you got. So you gotta make really good use of it.
We've kind of talked like Columbia College forward. We touched a little bit on you being in the Air Force. How did you get to the States and how did you kind of decide on like League of Legends as being your
Right. So I always liked League of Legends. I always liked competing, but it's kind of natural for me to pursue this. Um, Back in 2017, so right before I went to the army, I went to Korea to represent Israel in a competition called IESF, which is kind of a competition meant for nations rather than teams. So
Mhm.
every nation sends their best non-pro team, right? So you couldn't have players in the LCK or LCS representing their country. But there were some players like Summit, for example, was in the Korean team that year.
Yeah.
And then went on to play LCK, LCS, the whole deal.
Yeah.
And we ended up placing fourth. We lost to China. Um, and I was like, this thing is pretty fun. Like, I played some local lands in Israel, but they're no longer a thing. So all that was left for me was to look for competition outside of Israel because it just doesn't exist there. So as I joined the army, I was in a combat unit, so I had 6 months of basic training where I barely went home, barely had time to see my family. So I kind of had to drop league for that time period. But then later during my service, I realized I want to keep being good at League of Legends. I was already challenger, but every time I went back to base for 3 weeks, my account just decayed.
Yeah.
So to kind of keep my mechanics intact, because I knew I wanted to keep pursuing League of Legends once I'm done, what I would do is just stay up all night in the weekends that I was home, and then just take the first bus as the sun came out. Just take the first bus to base. Pull through the first day without any sleep,
Yeah.
and just like go on with my week. And then once I was done, I got on a plane. I put my computer in my suitcase, and I went to my cousin in New York, and he helped me put the computer back together. And I played a bunch of solo queue, reached like rank 20, and then I got a collegiate offer, several actually, and I ended up going to CC.
That's some crazy dedication. We spoke earlier, and you kind of mentioned that like you just don't stop.
I'm pretty focused on just improving, just playing solo queue, streaming, coaching, whatever it is, playing scrims, tournaments. I just love the game. I don't really get tired of it. I just want to keep getting better. And the more I learn, the better I get, the more fun it is for me because
Yeah.
I enjoy just being the best at whatever it is I do.
Absolutely. And kind of one final question before you go. Um, again, you're super, super disciplined, super dedicated to the game. What kind of moments in League of Legends like live for that make you be like, I chose the right thing with my life?
I mean, when you get a pop off moment, it's the most fun thing you can have. Like when you carry a game and you know it's just like the team won thanks to you. No
Mm-hmm.
other player that they could have brought over would have done the same thing. Like that's what really keeps me interested in the game. Like doing something that very few other people in North America can do is something special. Like you don't often have something that you are so good at. Like I don't have anything else that I can say I'm in the top 0.001%.
Yeah.
Right? It's a special thing. So I want to hold on to that. Use that.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. And that's so awesome. I'm so excited to see who picks you up this season. Best of luck and thank you for chatting with me today.
Yeah, thank you.
All of MU are here. Niles teleported over towards the mid lane, so the Baron was taken, but Kind came running through.
Shogo!
The pit, and Niles taken down. Shogo, the power is strong. Evan, using the
Shogo!
That's a double kill here. That's a triple kill. That's a quadra kill. Shogo, baby, can you do it?
St. Thomas, they're the ones with all the tools, and if ultimates are down, well, guess what? Shogo is just going to rip through your team with how far ahead he is at this point, as look at how Shogo plays this, using the combos to sidestep everything. A beautiful team fight from him. And Shogo, who came over here from Israel to prove himself the highest level competition you can play outside Academy. He's the one that carries his team across the finish line and evens up this series. Shogo trying to put the action 2 feet down. A-State trying to go game 2. Kitsuo.
All the way back. We are starting to class to see if they can help answer him, but the stun up and the lockdown is too good onto Kitsuo in the meantime. But did you get a stun onto Robbie-Bot, which means he's the next one to fall. Seradon coming through in the clutch, but Robbie-Bot did manage to kill 2 before he had fallen himself. The Johnny and Sword was taken out of the Shogo. Final hour. All activated. Sophie Sage can't even step fully into the pouch before he falls himself. And
Guys.
I got spaced so hard. Like, would you not?